So last year, I was in Indonesia, and one of these mornings, I got chance to photograph this beautiful landscape. I was on this commission project by Nat Geo Indonesia magazine, and they said, why don't you go there for 2 days and come back with some pretty pictures? And I went, and I did get this pretty picture. This was beautiful. I can't express how beautiful that landscape was. There was this clouds flowing in the base, and this is the only active volcano in Indonesia right now. But it was not only me who got these pictures. There were 100 more tourists around me, those who got these pictures. And now when I look back at that image, I realized that none of us, we captured the beauty of the landscape. We got a snapshot of it. And a landscape, we all know, is way beyond its usual beauty. It is about, the real beauty of landscape is in its processes, its intricacies, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to share a few stories in which I hope by end of that, we all will agree that landscapes are way beyond the visual beauty. For the first story, I'll take you to the northwest corners of Maharashtra. That's where this story was made. It's about lateritic plateaus of northwest Maharashtra. In northwest Maharashtra, these plateaus stand tall out of the plains at 1100 meters, and they are completely isolated from each other. Made of lateritic rock, which is red in color, as well as something that absorbs a lot of heat. So during afternoon times, it gets really hot there. So when we pitched this story, the people, those who assigned us this commission for this project, they said that, why do you want to go there? It's barren. And we were planning to go there at the wrong time of the year. This is the same place where you saw Prakash showed some of the aerial footages. It was pretty, right? It was beautiful, but that's the time when all the people go to see this landscape. But we all wanted to show something different than that. We wanted to see that landscape at an odd period of time and find beauty in it. And that's what we did. It was really hot, and I mean it. I have a proof. It was 48.2 degrees. And my camera, whoever says Canon, Nikon, hell with everything, I had both the bodies, and their rubber was coming out. So it doesn't matter when you're out there in the field. And it was barren. As you can see, the slopes are full of life. And as soon as the plateau comes into the role, it's completely barren because it's hard rock, red rock, nothing can grow on it. But when we took a closer look, we came across some amazing species, and we realized that the plateau is not barren, it is full of life. There's a fan-throated lizard called as Setaena ponticerana. It is showing its gulla, it's flapping its gulla to attract potential mates, females. We all do that. And all the crevices on the plateaus were full of different species, because during the hot midday sun, all these species find refuge in different crevices. The saw-scaled viper becomes one with the landscape. You can actually see it. Most of its prey has a black and white vision. So in that black and white vision, it is just next to impossible to see these saw-scaled vipers on that landscape. It actually becomes one with it. A lot of species come onto the plateau from the adjoining valleys during the evening. And at night, this plateau just comes to life. This is an Indian fox, pup of an Indian fox, which was on its way to its den when I took this picture. But what is equally interesting about these plateaus are that they are isolated. One plateau here, one plateau here, one plateau here. And each plateau has their own species, have their own macro habitat. This is Hemidactylus satarensis, a species of a gecko which is found only on one plateau, which is 11 square kilometers. So this gecko is found nowhere else in the world, but just in those 11 square kilometers, which is pretty cool. There's a sister species of that satarensis. It's called as Hemidactylus albofasciatus, again found only on one plateau, which is adjoining to the Sarkewadi plateau. So they all have their own species. But the most shocking, however, the most shocking phenomena of this plateau is the transformation, rapid transformation that it undergoes. At the advent of monsoon, these bioluminescent fireflies kind of signifies that the monsoon is arriving. And if you are lucky, if you are at the right time of the year, for 2 to 3 nights, you can actually see the entire forest lit up by these fireflies. And I mean it. You can actually see in this, you can see the synchronization as well as their movement behavior. These fireflies are moving from this tree to that tree. There's a long exposure image. And as they tell, soon the monsoon arrives. Next morning, the monsoon came, hit the plateau. It rained a lot for a day. And due to rains, there were a lot of pools formed onto the plateau, which gave way to many species for breeding. And it became a breeding ground for many species. A lot of species came onto the plateau from adjoining valleys, which were again followed by species that feed onto those amphibians. There's a cat snake. We still don't know the species of it, exact species. It belongs to cat snake family, something new probably. And as in between this dynamics that is happening between prey and predators, snakes trying to hunt lizards, lizards trying everything, life still goes on. This is a frog, probably of a Zacarena species. Again, we don't know, most probably a new species. But what is the most shocking thing about this story is the span in which this was done. We landed there. This image was taken on that one plateau, Sarkewadi plateau, which is 11 square kilometers, on the day 1. And this image was taken on day 15, on the same plateau, 100 meters away from that tree. I wanted to take a picture with that tree, but unfortunately it was halfway through inside water. So, but what I'm trying to say is that a landscape changes over time. There are temporal changes which are really amazing, and that is something we all should notice when we travel around, because that's the beauty of a landscape. For day 1, day 15. But a landscape also changes over space, spatial differences, and what a better place than Sikkim to talk about the changes that happens over space. There's this concept in ecology which talks about each landscape is different from each other depending on the 3D space that it acquires in the world. Mountains acquires completely different kind of space than a grassland. Grassland acquires the base. Mountains acquire entire space. And that's the story about. I was there to document the research that is going on between many research institutes, but essentially all these people are trying to understand how climate change is affecting this landscape and what is the glaciation history of the entire Sikkim. And while documenting this, the only thing that I could remember or I could notice is the stark difference across the landscape that I could see. When you walk from the base of Sikkim, which is at 300 meters, to the top of Sikkim, which is 7,000 meters, you can see how the landscape is changing. At 3,000 meters, this is the base of Sikkim, which is at 300 meters, base of Sikkim, full of grasslands, harboring their own species, which are unique to, again, that grassland. You move 100 meters above, and this entire habitat and ecosystem changes, the landscape changes. You come across the dense, evergreen, lush forests. They have their own species. This big oak stands tall in the middle of the rainforest, which is found only in between 1,200 to 1,800 meters in Sikkim. You go a little above, at 2,000 meters to 4,000 meters, you come across these coniferous forests, which again have their own species. I have to mention this because this is the reality. At every 200 meters, the biodiversity as well as the landscape is changing. There's a really pretty bird called as Himalayan monal, and this, for instance, is found in the coniferous rainforest, in the coniferous forest. at that elevation. And the Himalayan and Trans-Himalayan landscape forms the roof of Sikkim. As you can see, we started with with grasslands, and within a span of a day's time, you can reach to Himalaya, which is amazing. But along with the changes in elevational changes in Sikkim, there is something more interesting. These research projects that are going on, they are trying to collect data in field as well as laboratory, which will help them eventually understand how this landscape is going to or may change over time due to climate change, and what habitats of this entire Sikkim will eventually will actually eventually represent how climate change is affecting that landscape. Now from Sikkim, we'll come down to something that is more home ground for us. From Sikkim mountains to Western Ghats mountains. And Western Ghats, as you all know, is vast. It starts in Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. It's really vast, and I'm sure we all face this issue as landscape photographers or wildlife photographers or photographers. Everybody, every now and then asks, where have you come back from? Or what is this image? Where is this image taken? And to a layman, all we can tell is it was taken in Western Ghats. But we all know that Western Ghats is very, very, very complex mountain chain. And this story is going to be about the scale, that how the landscape, how you can zoom into a landscape. This is 60% of the Western Ghats. Maharashtra is above the rooftop. So in this Western Ghats, the blue areas are the high elevation mountain landscape. That's where I'm working from last 2 years. Now you zoom into one of those high elevation blue mountains and you come across these sky islands. This is the story that I'm doing from last 2 years for National Geographic magazine. It's on sky islands. What are sky islands? Sky islands are these mountain tops which are peeking out of the clouds. And as they are high up in the sky, they are called as sky islands. Now, per se, now zoom into one of the mountain tops. Again, we zoomed from Western Ghats to one mountain peak to a peak of one of the mountains. And we come across these Shola forest grassland complexes, which are really unique to Western Ghats, unique to India. Now, there are these grasslands on the hills, and there are these forest patches in the valleys, very unique. It is not found anywhere else. Now, we will try and zoom in again from, we started at Western Ghats, now we'll zoom into this one forest patch, which is moist, and we reach to this. Now that moist forest changes into entirely, it is a moist rainforest. Now within these moist rainforests, it harbors n number of endemic species of plants, reptiles, amphibians. I'm sure there are a lot of amphibian people here. This is a frog named as Nyctibatrachus minimus. It used to be the smallest frog. I think recently there's another frog which is found which is smaller than this. But there's a story behind it. I hiked for almost 7 hours to reach to this forest patch where I knew that this frog is found. I reached there, I was tired, it was evening, and I heard the frog in this much area. I knew its call, and I was like, great, I have found the frog. And in this much area, it took me more than 3.5 hours to find that frog again. Because you can see how small it is. And it used to call once in 15 minutes, and it was just one with the habitat, one with the landscape. So now just try and zoom out to Western Ghats, which is again a landscape. Zoom into grasslands, forests. In forest there is one stream. In stream there is one pond which has its own frog. And this again is a landscape. So landscape changes over space, it changes over time, it changes over scale. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about landscapes. But one thing that is common with all the landscapes, that is human-mediated changes. Be it any landscape, all the landscapes are negatively affected by what we do. So the Satara story that we saw, that plateau, the Chaikewadi plateau, 11 square kilometer plateau, is also home to the Asia's biggest windmill farm. Sorry. This flower, this orchid is called as Apologeton satarensis. It is amongst the world's 100 most endangered plant species, found only on 5 to 6 pools which are this big on this plateau. When I did this story in 2013, I photographed it in this pond. Last year, a windmill came onto that pond. A species which was discovered 10 years back, discovered and lost in a very short time. This lizard, we feel that, okay, so windmills are considered as green energy. We all agree, there's no doubt about it. There are no regulations associated with it because it's green energy. But each and everything that we do has some or the other effect on the ecosystem. And this is a very good example to tell that. Because of the presence of windmills, raptors don't come around these areas, because if they come, they hit the windmill blades. In absence of raptors, the densities of these sitanas or these lizards have gone high because there is no aerial predation. As their densities have gone high, so windmill people, they were like, oh, this is great because of our windmills. Lizards are growing in number, amazing. In the next field season, researchers tried to delve deeper, and what they found is they did some hormonal studies and they realized that these sitanas in the windmill farm area are really, really stressed compared to individuals which live in the non-windmill area. Because of absence of aerial predation, their numbers have gone up. Because of increase in number, their home ranges have gone down. Now they move less and they fight with other males much more to save their territory. And the most important thing is, in less than 30 generations, their morphology has changed. Morphological data clearly shows that the body size of individuals in the windmill area is going smaller than the body size of individuals in non-windmill area. And this just because of windmills in less than 30 generations, which is really rapid and very drastic. Every year, thousands of birds die all over the world because of windmills. No one here is saying that windmills are bad. I am sure, we all are sure that windmills are better to our landscape compared to all other energy resources that we have. But unfortunately, there are absolutely no regulations. Each landscape can harbor only n number of windmills, and that has not been thought about. That is what is happening in Sikkim. Each landscape can harbor only n number of dams, and there are more and more dams coming in without any regulation. And that was the whole point of the story, to explain people that we need to bring in some policy level regulation. Now let's get to Western Ghats, our backyard again, grasslands. Unfortunately in India, grasslands are considered as wastelands. Uske upar jhaad nahi hai, matlab wo khatam hai. That's the reality. But these landscapes, these mountain grasslands are really unique, and they have their own ecosystem. We have lost 85% of mountain grasslands in Western Ghats. Nobody knows this. We have lost 85%, and there are only 15% remaining, which have their own ecosystem, their own species. One such species is this really dark-looking bird. It's called as Nilgiri pipit. Its distribution used to be across Western Ghats. It's a cold environment specialist. It likes to live in a cold environment as well as where there are not many people. The Western Ghats landscape used to be like this. It was supposed to be like this, but now it is like this. Plantations have taken over the entire high elevation mountain area of Western Ghats. There are timber plantations, there's tea, there's coffee, and we have lost almost 85% of, again, habitat. And now this bird is found only on those two mountain peaks. It has lost its 90% of the distribution. today, its global distribution is less than 2 to 300 square kilometer. I was in Ooty giving a talk about climate change, and I opened the newspaper, and I saw an article on climate change, and the picture there was of polar bear, because that's what people perceive. But this bird, this very drab-looking bird, is way less in number than polar bear, has way less area space left than polar bear, and probably this might be the first bird to go extinct from Western Ghats. So the idea was to help people identify their own icons for climate change, help them identify and make them ambassadors for local action for the global issue. And that's what we are trying to do right now. Sorry. So as I started with that, all our land, we all go for the beauty of landscape, but the real beauty lies in its processes, and it's hidden in the fragility that a landscape harbors, and that's the true beauty. We should keep delving deeper and deeper. Thank you.